You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Lian Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And the next way that we're guiding people on that path is via our new crucible, Waking the Wild Heart, which I'm delighted to say has sold out. We are feeling so blessed with depth and courage with amazing people who are going to be joining us for this wild adventure starting tomorrow. If you've missed out on joining us this time, go check out our Go Deeper page at primalhappiness.co/go deeper so you can see other ways that you can work with us. Now, this week's show is my All the Everything, where I jam on an eclectic mix of topics, usually chosen by the members of our wonderful Facebook group. This is where you can get up close and personal with me, get inside my head and see what I've been up to and thinking about. It also airs live on Facebook on the first Friday of every month. In this episode, I dive deep into the topic of how to embody deep approval for yourself. I talked about living from soul, embodiment, and approving of our darkest shadows. Does that sound juicy? Great, let's jump in. Welcome to September's All the Everything. And it doesn't feel very long at all since the last one, because the last one was late. I think that was only 2 weeks ago, and this one's earlier than it would be. Because normally on a Friday, today's Wednesday, so it feels like there's only been a couple of weeks, but it is such a juicy topic. As I was pondering things I can share with you, I was seeing like so much fits within this topic of approving of yourself, full approval of yourself. It's so powerful. So I'm delighted to be doing this one today. And as ever, it's a topic chosen by the members of our Primal Happiness Facebook group. And I'm really glad. I was one of those ones where I was like hoping that's the one they would go for, and they did. So I'm delighted to be here talking about this whole concept of self-approval. So I am going to begin by talking about what I've been consuming, creating over the last month. I didn't do that last time, I think, because I had quite a lot of, as I shared, I had quite a lot of fear about talking about the whole idea of magic and living a magic-led life. And so I just wanted to dive in. But I'm going back to my usual format now and talking about what I've been consuming and creating. So I'm going to start by, as ever, I consume books in particular like mad. So I've always got like a number of books to choose from to share with you. This time it's one that really stood out as a very, very powerful book, which is I can never say the word, Existential Kink. And the author was on the show last week. And it's also, I'm going to talk a bit about what it's about in a moment. For those of you that haven't listened to that episode, I would really recommend doing so. But it actually fits really beautifully with today's topic too. In essence, it's about seeing how you are getting a kind of subconscious, kinky thrill out of the things in your life that you say you don't want. And which is a very kind of simple summary of it, but it's so powerful to start to see how you're creating life that way. And as I say, this links really heavily to this idea of self-approval, deep self-approval that I talk about a lot, and I'm going to go really deep into today. So it kind of is like a really nice pairing of the two episodes and that book in particular. Again, really gorgeous practices, meditations that allow you to enter into seeing yourself as a total creator of your life in that way. So really, really recommend that, both the book and last week's podcast episode. I enjoyed talking to Carolyn so much that we're actually doing a part 2 in, I think it's next month, or it might be later this month. I don't know. But we've got that coming up. So if you listen to last week's episode and have any questions that you would like me to ask Carolyn in part 2, just let me know. Probably the Facebook group's best place to post those. So yeah, let me know. Talk about the Facebook group. Not sure if I remember to share this here. I'm going to do that now. It's not the most interesting thing if you're...
I don't know. Here
I
we go.
can...
Then ends up going out.
Oh gosh, that's not working. I'm going to try and do this quickly on my Mac, and then anyone that wants to watch it in the group can do. But yes, I'm referring at the moment to the Primal Happiness Facebook group. So if you're not already a member, go join us. It's at facebook.com/group/primal happiness, and you can post any questions you've got for Carolyn. There we go. Has that worked? Yes, wonderful. So that's what I've been consuming. And then as to what I've been creating, wow, so much. In the interest of time, I'm only going to share a couple of things because it really has been a month of so much creation, both in terms of tangible things I have created that you can see in the world, but also in terms of creation of my own expansion, my own being. It's been a very, very, how would I describe it? The last 3 months, there's been a lot of expansion and a lot of kind of soul searching, some dark night of the soul moments too. And so I'm not going to share about that, but I'm just saying, like, it has been a month of a lot of creation of all kinds. So what tangible creations have I been up to in the last month? The main one to share with you is Waking the Wild Heart, which I am, oh my goodness, so excited and delighted to be creating and leading with Jonathan. It starts on Thursday, i.e. tomorrow. And wow, I've spoken about this a bit before, but it really is a kind of like culmination of so much of the work that Jonathan and I have been doing separately with groups, one-to-one with clients over the last few years. We've really pulled all this together into this crucible that we're going to be taking people through in Wake the Wild Heart. It's sold out, which it's so funny. I was saying to my sister yesterday, even though I think pretty much everything we've offered over the last however many years has sold out, I never believe it will. And so we always go through this like, oh, no one's going to want it. Oh my goodness, only 2 people want it. I'm going to have to refund their money because we won't be able to, like, I go through that every single time. And I wonder if I just always will. And there was, my sister said to me, like, I wonder if you just actually really like it that way. Which was very kind of going back to what I was talking about, existential kink is very kind of like that way of seeing it. Like, yeah, I'm probably creating it that way because I get a kinky thrill out of that degree of uncertainty each time. And yet again, it kind of sold out and then some. So really amazing people as well that I know. A lot of them I know personally because they've been kind of journeying with us in various ways over the years. And oh my goodness, it is going to be deep, deep, powerful work we're going to be doing together. So that has been a big creation that Jonathan and I have both been up to over the last month. And obviously we'll continue as we create the actual experience over September and into October. I'm going to share, it's a bit of a kind of secret, so I can't give you too much of the details, but I'm also working with an artist, Katerina Meccano, on collaboration. How much information? Okay, let's just say it's a collaboration of ideas, words, and images that are connected to really allowing a woman to like deeply empower her relationship to her menstrual cycle. And it's, yes, so magical. And it's already proving to be a real deep experience for both Kat and I too. In the creation of it, we're needing to kind of go even more deeply into relationship with our own cycles. Not least the fact we're having to kind of honor, like being really called into like honoring where we are in our cycle as to where we're creating from and what we're creating at each point in our own cycle. So it's been a gift in ways that I just really hadn't expected. So we're in the, I guess, fairly early stages of that. No idea yet when that will be released into the world. I'm guessing probably not until next year. I don't know. Kat and I haven't actually spoken about timescales, but it does seem to have its own flow and its own sense of when it wants to do things. So I don't know. We'll see how quickly that actually happens. But yeah, it's something that I feel so passionate about putting in the hands of other women, but particularly young, like girls becoming women when they first enter their menstrual cycle, and really bringing back that sense of it being this sacred initiation into something absolutely beautiful and powerful. So I kind of have this like firm deadline that by the time that happens for my daughter, who's currently 10, we will have this creation out in the world, and it's something that I can then give to her. So that's the kind of ultimate deadline I have, and it definitely is part of the inspiration behind creating this thing. And sorry to be so secretive. It's just that at the moment it feels that it's been a very kind of feminine creation, very much kind of seeded in the dark, and it feels as though it's not ready to be out in the light yet. So that is kind of, I'm not being protective about it in a fearful way. It just feels as though it's not yet ready to be spoken about directly or shown directly. Hence, I'm kind of alluding to what it is rather than talking directly to it. Okay, I think we are now ready to dive into the main topic. How to embody deep approval for yourself. And I was considering where to start talking from. And I thought I'd share just from the get-go that I get that it can occur a bit like if someone says I've got deep approval for myself, that they don't care what other people think. There's definitely this kind of cliche thing, I think, in the personal growth movement where it's like, you know, I'm someone that just doesn't give a, I'm not going to swear actually because I don't want to have to mark this as explicit, but like, I don't give a damn what people think of me. And I'm absolutely not that kind of person. Like, I really care a lot about what people think. I care a lot about what people feel. And that's still the case. The difference is through the journey, practices, growth I'm going to share with you, I'm now in a place where I still really care how others feel. I still care about what other people think of me, but it's not from a place of needing others to give me kind of permission or validation or safety. I have that kind of like already here inbuilt. And from that place, it allows me to actually be in even kind of deeper commune, openness with the world, including other people and including their opinions of me. There is, I no longer see it as a threat or something that has information about my value or my, I guess, whether I can approve of myself or not. I'm not looking for someone else to say whether that's okay. So that's the difference. But I really want to share that because where I'm talking from isn't being able to approve of yourself means not giving a damn about what other people think. It feels to me, it very much can include that. And I think there is real power in creating that level of safety in ourselves where we can be, again, in this like deep communion and openness with the world, but not use that as a kind of navigational source, as it were. Okay, so where to next? So I guess this a good starting place for this would be linking back to something I said at the start of this show, which is I think it's only really possible to have this level of kind of deep approval of ourselves when we have some sense of ourselves as being the creator of everything in our lives. I feel as though that in one way or another, whatever languaging we give to that, whether that be seeing our kind of God nature or seeing ourselves as this kind of ultimate creator, whether it be seeing ourselves as a kind of fractal of the one, I believe one way or another, however we experience that, however we language it, it seems to me that a sense of that is required to be able to get to this position where we are able to say, I have created all of this. And therefore, by default, I also approve of it because I wouldn't have created it if I didn't approve of it. It's not to say that's like a conscious like phrase you're saying to yourself, but ultimately that's the place you're creating your life from. That's the place you're experiencing your life from. And therefore, as I say, it almost is downstream from that is this sense of, well, obviously, therefore, I approve of it. It's a bit like saying, I don't know if this is the best example, but I'm looking out at my garden at the moment, which is just absolutely blooming at the moment with like, oh my God, it's the most beautiful kind of English country cottage garden flowers like hollyhocks and lavender and roses, all my favorite things. And knowing that I played, I mean, it's a funny one giving garden as an example because obviously it has its own kind of creational force, but let's just say I did choose the flowers that are in that border. I chose, what was required to allow them to be sort of tended and grown. And it wouldn't really make sense from that place to not approve of it. I totally get that I was the creator of that piece of beauty, that work of art even. And it wouldn't make sense, therefore, not to approve of that thing that I've consciously created. So this is, again, from that place, there is almost like a part before this sense of approval, which is like really owning ourselves as this creative power, this creative force behind our experiences of life. And then I guess the kind of obvious next question to that is like, well, how do we do that? And I'm not going to give a kind of like, oh, it's a sort of 3-step process. But I'm going to point in some directions that I can see are really helpful and have been helpful both for myself, but also very much for the clients I've worked with over the years to get to that place where we're able to, and I say place like it's a destination and then you stay here. Clearly, our consciousness ebbs and flows. Sometimes we're very, very conscious of ourselves in this way. Sometimes we're not. That's okay. That's being human. But there is a way of being where that's in our awareness more than it isn't. So, firstly, everything that I've shared in probably most shows that I've done in the past about living from soul is so essential, I believe, to understanding ourselves in this way as this kind of ultimate creator. And as I spoke about, I think it was a couple of months ago, about this kind of idea of actually like making that decision, making that commitment to live from soul requires us then to prioritize that, not make it something that might happen if we have time, might happen if the inspiration takes us, but actually is a way that we are committed to living our life and are prioritizing, making the time for. And so that includes all the things I've spoken about in the past. So spending time in nature, I believe, is essential to that. There's probably examples of people who have managed this without spending time in nature, but I would say they're the exception to the rule. And kind of A, why make it hard on yourself? B, it's lovely to be out in nature. So why not walk the path that way? I also believe empowering, I guess, other ways of perceiving the world in this kind of more magical, mythical way. And we can do that in so many different ways. That can be looking at our dreams for guidance. It can be reading poetry. It can be writing poetry. It can be creating kind of rituals to vision, like so many different ways. But it really is about shifting our gaze inwards into this like soul. I guess the lens of soul is how we're then starting to look at the world, rather than this external, like, this is how the material world works, this is what we value, this is what you're here for, and looking there for the answers. This very much is a shift in perspective where we're looking inwards into our soul for the way to live. What's next for us, where we're being called for, what we desire. And that might sound like, well, how does that link to being that kind of seeing ourselves as a creative force? I think it's twofold. One, I don't think it's probably possible to experience ourselves from this kind of soulful place without also recognizing that we are a fractal. We are a drop in this ocean that is the ultimate creative force. I believe it seems to be, to me, like as soon as we start to experience ourselves from that deeper place, that just comes with the territory, which makes sense really, because it's kind of like, I don't really know how we could even just logically conceive ourselves as being these kind of like deeply magical souls and not also have a sense of kind of like that greater force at work. So there's that. I believe also that I know this is less, it's not really a belief, it's actually just what I've experienced, what I've seen, is the more we're living life from that place, the more evidence we get that we are that creative force, that we do have sovereign choice, that we do have just unlimited power to create exactly what we desire. And so, yes, I guess initially there is some faith involved, but I don't even actually know I'd call it faith. I think it's almost just like the willingness to play, the willingness to experiment, to not wait for that kind of seeing is believing, but just empower some belief and let yourself see whether that turns into something. And so, again, the more we're living from that place of like, what if there is more to this? What if there is magic? What if I have the capacity to create whatever I choose? What I see over and over again is the world lines up to show us that is so. So that is kind of like, if I were to say one thing is like the how here, it's like do everything I've spoken about before in terms of empowering your life from this soulful place, creating your life from this soulful place. Okay, right. Number 2 on my list of nice, easy 3-step is taking full sovereign responsibility for creating deep safety in your body. The way most of us have been raised in this modern world means that, from a combination often of trauma and also conditioning, our nervous system is going to be freaking the hell out for many people, like quite a regular basis. which is really going to get in the way of you being able to live in that kind of soulful, open, and ultimately approving way that we're talking about here. And one way of approaching that lack of felt safety is to see what we can do out there to make our lives feel as safe as possible. So when I say out there, lining up circumstances, controlling how people show up in our lives, keeping our lives as kind of small and safe as possible so that our nervous system isn't constantly being triggered into fight or flight. Like, that's one way of doing it. What I'm suggesting is there's a way that we can take our own responsibility for creating that safety in our body that absolutely allows us to live again from this deeply soulful place, which, like, again, necessitates that we then approve of what we're creating. So again, I would have spoken about many of these practices in past shows. And it's very much the kinds of things that we teach in our one-to-one work and also programs like Wake the Wild Heart coming up. So it's really, first and foremost, just recognizing, like, this is a choice. We don't need to be at the mercy of our nervous system being hijacked. We don't need to just be a victim to how the world will be saying, like, this is scary, close up. Like, there is an absolute choice into something else. And there are so many practices we can do to empower that choice into taking responsibility for creating our own safety. So many different kinds of embodiment practices. I particularly recommend the books The Body Keeps the Score and Waking the Tiger. I was about to say Wild Tiger. Waking the Tiger. Those books speak so powerfully and beautifully to, firstly, everything I'm talking about here, about the way that our bodies hold this trapped trauma, holds this kind of frozen trauma, and how that impacts how we're able to go in the world in a way that feels safe, feels like we're able to open. And they also give really gorgeous, like, practical ways that you can start to thaw that frozen trauma. I'm a real fan of their work around resensitizing to our felt sense, tuning to our felt sense. And also, I really think practices such as body-led movement, where we're just allowing our bodies to move as they want to move. Also forms of dance, like particularly things like static dance, where we're able to be back in our bodies, feeling that kind of back and forth. And when I say back and forth, it's weird because it's kind of like, I feel like I'm talking about the body as if it's not us. Clearly it is us, but in order to be able to articulate it, I'm going to have to talk about it as if it's separate. But we end up with this kind of back and forth relationship, conversation with our body in a way that then we feel safe, we feel guided, we feel that we are have that access to intuition and instinct that is that kind of deepest level of safety. We know that if we need to run, if we need to freeze, if we need to fight, our bodies are in a place where they can do that, but they're not having this kind of oversensitive reaction to things that actually aren't a threat, which is, for most of us, most of the time, our bodies aren't actually under threat. It's just how we've been conditioned to experience the world. So again, our bodies have such deep wisdom, and I guess they're just a very forgiving nature as well. You know, if you've only just, as you're hearing me talk about this now, only just starting to perceive your body in this way and deciding to start to enter into embodiment practices, like, your body is there waiting for you to do this. It isn't going to be kind of like, yeah, talk to the hand, like, you've ignored me all these years, I'm not interested. Like, what I see over and over again, and it's making me feel quite emotional talking about it, is like, our bodies are just there as this just gorgeous well of love where they want to be in communion with us. They want to have this, like, unbelievably intimate relationship with us. They want to be there as a source of not just safety, but safety for sure, but also like a way of empowering, again, those soul felt desires into the world. Like ultimately, how we're going to do them without our bodies. So, what I see over and over again is our bodies are so willing and welcoming into being experienced in this way. And it often doesn't take like even months. I was going to say years. It doesn't even take months. Just the choice to start to be back in our bodies and having that kind of relationship with our bodies in itself is powerful. And you could just pick one embodiment practice, and the one I just mentioned about body-led movement, literally just creating some time and space to just feel into like, how does my body want to move? Put some music on. Usually it's better to use music that hasn't got words in your language, i.e. you don't want that kind of external feed to be what moves your body. Again, it's very much like listening inwards, like how does my body want to move? But, music that's either just instrumental or in another language can be perfect for this. And sometimes that can look really weird, how our body wants to move. Like I know the women I've worked with in the past are like, I can't believe, like, what must I have looked like? I was just moving the most weird ways. Like sometimes it can be. Sometimes it may be that your body doesn't actually want to move very much at all. It might be the way it wants to move is being still. It might be the way it wants to move is just really subtle undulations. I have seen absolutely all kind of like, every kind of movement our bodies might want to move like. So really allow that to happen in however it wants to happen. So if you just were to do one embodiment practice, that would be a really helpful and powerful one to start with. And also I will say, I know a lot of the people I've worked with have struggled with that. It sounds easy. And then when we go to do it, I think there's a sense of like, I actually know how powerful this could be for me. And there's often a lot of kind of self-judgment, as in like, oh, I feel silly. I'm going to look silly, even though no one can see me. I still feel really self-conscious. So really be gentle with yourself, like recognize that it isn't silly of you to find this hard. I'm going to get into a bit more about resistance in a moment, but like really give yourself full permission to experience it however you experience. There's no rush here. Certainly if you're only just embarking in practices like this, you've lived your whole adult life, there is no rush to like nail this now in 2 days. Like take as long with it as you need to. Give yourself full permission to do that. Okay, how am I doing for time? Wow, that's flown by. Okay, the next one is a gorgeous one, but also probably the most challenging, I would say, which is, again, from this place of the deepest approval of, not even approval, again, understanding ourselves as this creator of our experience, which then necessitates we approve of it, because why would we have created it? If we experience ourselves that way, that includes all of the things in our lives, all these ways of being, all of these feelings that we would say we don't want. And that can be a bit of a kind of mind blower. And I'm not going to get into too much the details of this in the moment. What I really don't want to do is say, I'm insisting that no matter what horrible things have happened to you in your life, you're responsible for. Shall I say anything? Okay. So first and foremost, I'm coming from a place of, particularly when we're talking about children, let's just not even look at it like that. I just don't think it's helpful to see that whatever, very difficult experience we had as children, we even need to see it from that perspective of, I chose it. You decide however you want to be in relationship to that. But like for the moment, let's just talk about ourselves as adult selves and this being a choosing into experience ourselves as this creator in this way. I hope that's helpful. I'm not kind of trying to like gloss over that. It's just I really want to keep the focus on what's possible for you right now as an adult listening to this. So again, from this idea that we can relate to ourselves as this creator of everything that we're experiencing. Again, that absolutely has to include the things that we're saying we don't like in our lives. And again, Carolyn spoke about this beautifully last week too, and also in her book. And so that includes your resistance, that includes your fear, that includes these kind of like shadowy, manipulative ways that you have of getting your needs met. It includes all of it. And this absolutely can be the hardest place to still be in approval of ourselves. We are very much taught to shove anything that is kind of like not seen as like nice, good into shadow, and to deny it, disassociate from it, be a victim to it, blame others to it. So this is a real kind of leap of consciousness, I guess, to even be willing to entertain the idea of like, whoa, what if I'm creating that too? And for me, that's been probably the single most transformative part of my journey. It's hard to say for sure because there's so many things I could point out and say like, wow, that was super powerful. But I think the places that were the real, the places that I was most stuck and felt like no matter what I do, this stuff, I still seem to be stuck in this same cycle of being this way about whatever it could be, money, relationships. It's this piece of recognizing, I created this too, that has allowed me to start to be liberated from them. And it kind of makes sense. You go into Jung's quote, what you resist persists. Yes, that's obvious in a way. Like, yes, like people have said versions of that, for probably hundreds of years. And yeah, it's obviously is one thing kind of knowing that, is another thing kind of like, so how do we stop resisting it? And my sense of like how we stop resisting it is to approve of the resistance itself, to recognize that, again, even the resistance is something that you chose, you created. And in the very act of like being open to that feeling of resistance, like, oh, wow, I chose this, I approve of it fully. From that place, there is something else becomes available. What I see over and over again is like the moment we bring things into the light, the moment we open our hearts to them, the moment we approve of them, they change. There is huge transformational power in just, and I say just, like in some ways, again, this is the most challenging thing, in just us being able to bring this full approval, this sense of like, oh yes, even the resistance I can approve of. There is something about that allows that to be alchemized. Like, yeah, what we resist persists, and what we approve of alchemizes. And let me just take a pause there, because is there anything else I want to say on that idea of approving of it all? I think really just to say, again, this is probably of the three things I've just shared. So the idea of kind of empowering you living from soul, taking that sovereign responsibility for creating that deep safety in your body. And then this one, approving of all of it, everything you're creating. This one, I would say, is for most people the most challenging. Even people that I've worked with who have been on some form of kind of spiritual path, personal growth path for years, this is the place that is often going to be hardest to see their creative power showing up. This is the place where they're going to most be like, no, I didn't choose this, surely. I didn't create this. I wouldn't have created this. And how can I approve of this like, way that I'm showing up, or this like huge fear that's getting in the way? Like, that's the place that is, you're going to be most tested. And so I'm not going to say like, oh, this is like a nice, tick this step and it's all going to be cool. This is definitely a kind of ongoing part of anyone's path who wants to be in this kind of like deep, transformational, ultimate creator way of being in the world. Like, this is the place that it's going to be challenging and so worthwhile because of that kind of, again, that transformational power it has to see ourselves in this way. Okay, right. Where should I go next? So just nipping back to what I said at the beginning about this idea of being in the world in a way where we just don't give a damn about what other people think. And for me, again, that is actually a kind of less impactful, less powerful way of showing up in the world. For me, there is something quite fear-based in that need not to give a damn. I feel like what's actually available to us is something much deeper, where we actually do really, really care. Like, we care about the world, we care about other people, we care about what's showing up for us, but not in a way where we're looking there for safety, not looking there for, the approval, the permission that would ultimately give us safety. Again, from this idea of doing what's needed to create that deep sense of safety and guidance and approval internally, we absolutely can then be in relationship, be open to hearing someone else's upset without it kind of then needing to kind of like take this, I can't think of the word. I'm trying to think of something that might smash up a road, and I can't think of a name of anything that does that. You know the thing. But we can be open and able to fully be in relationship to someone else, including them, for example, being upset with us or not liking something that we've done, without it taking one of those machines that smash up roads to our kind of path, our soul path. And it's interesting, actually. I notice, and I suppose this makes sense, like the more we live from this place, the more wild we are, the more we will actually often trigger other people, the more we'll upset people, the more we'll annoy people. And it's, again, for someone like me that cares a lot about what people think, I sometimes marvel now when someone, and it could be, for example, a client, says that I've triggered them. And I have this kind of like internal dialogue, like, wow, it's so interesting now that I can hear this, be fully open to it, really care about how that's showing up for them, but it's not then triggering me. Like, I'm not experiencing it from this fearful place of like, oh my goodness, oh, if they feel like this about me, that makes me wrong. And even like, I haven't got used to it. Like, I've been increasingly in this kind of place where I'm able to hear how other people are upset with me or whatever, without it triggering me. But I still haven't got used to it. It still blows my mind. I still think like, wow, that's trippy. I can hear how my client's really upset with me. And it not then have this closing effect on me. I can really be with them and allow that kind of like them to experience that trigger in a way that's actually going to be a gift to them. Allow that to be something that's part of their journey, part of their growth. That's a whole nother topic that maybe I'll talk to, actually. I think that came up in, I just realised that actually came up recently in a group, and someone asked me to do a show on that. So maybe I'll do something all about that whole idea of the power of kind of triggering other people, activating people, us being triggered, all of that. That's. I don't think I've done a show on that. If I haven't, I will do one, because I think that's, again, really juicy in its own right. Anyway, where do I go next? So a couple of things. One that from this place of, I guess what I'm talking about here is like, what's possible from this place of being in full approval of ourselves, deep approval of ourselves. Why does that matter? Why does that have value? And simply put, I believe we're able to create our lives in a way that just feels amazing, feels like we're living the life that we came here to live, feels as though we are able to make contact with those like deep, soulful desires. We're able to approve of them. We're not kind of automatically like, yeah, I shouldn't really want that. That's a bit greedy, or, oh my goodness, someone will be upset with me. Like, we're able to be in this like full approval of like, if it's showing up as something I'm being called to, That's cool. I approve of that. And the same for our feelings. Like we have this deep reverence for whatever's showing up in our bodies. And again, not with this kind of like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling nervous, or I shouldn't be feeling jealous, or I shouldn't be, like, we're able to be in this like deep communion. Like all of this is chosen and sacred and has something for me. And from there, we are able, firstly, to empower those desires in whatever way that might be, and then create from them, create in this kind of material world from that desire. We're able to make it manifest. We're also able to be in much more intimacy with other people. Like the way I see it, really, life is about relating. It would be a pretty sad life if we were just here on our own. So we're probably here to have these kind of like deepest levels of intimacy with other people. That is life as far as I'm concerned. And what I see over and over is us being able to express who we are, how we feel, what's going on for us is absolutely needed for that type of intimacy. And I believe that's only really possible, certainly to its fullest extent, when we have that approval for what's going on for us, what's true for us, how we feel. And so, again, this is a key, really, for us to be able to create these like gorgeously deep, intimate, juicy relationships. Having that sense of approval for ourselves, approval for how we feel, approval for our desires allows us to express that in a way that creates that intimacy that we're looking for. Is there anything else? Just one final thing, and I think I posted something similar to this into the Primal Happiness Facebook group last week, which is recognizing that our expression is its own gift. There can be this sense in this kind of very masculine, linear, productivity, results orientated world where anything that we're kind of putting out into the world has to be measured in some tangible way. Like it has to have, I don't know, a commercial value attached. Like by me creating this, it's going to make me X amount of money, or it's going to have other people really like and approve of me. And what we're talking about here is like from that place of like the deepest self-approval, we know that our expression has its own value, has its own gift. We're not looking out there for evidence of that. We know deeply that if it wants to come through us, it has value in its own right. Okay, I'm going to give one quick example that for me really helped me understand why this way of being about ourselves was so powerful. It was actually when I originally came up with the topic suggestions for this month, I actually worded this particular topic as something like self-approval versus self-acceptance. An example I'm about to give you, for me, illustrates the difference between the two. So I focus obviously entirely on self-approval, but I'm going to talk quickly about self-acceptance because I feel as though that's a kind of much, weaker kind of cousin to this approval that I'm talking about. I have no idea where I heard this example. I read it and I think it was related to something else, but it just suddenly, like when I heard this, I was like, wow, that works so well for this thing that I'm talking about here. And I really apologize if you're the one that shared this example and I'm not crediting you, because I genuinely can't remember where I heard it. So the example that was given, and I think it was about sexuality. I think it was directly about sexuality, but I can't actually remember for sure what the premise was. But the example was given about a young adult who was gay coming out to their parents. They're probably, I don't know, maybe in their teens and coming out to their parents. And so they've kind of obviously said that sentence of something, like, Mom, Dad, I'm gay. And it was talking about the kind of like response that came back would have been something like, often what we'd see is like at best being something like, yeah, we still accept you, we still love you. And the person that was sharing this example said, can you hear how that inherently lacks approval? like if, and this is going to be a bit make-believe because obviously someone wouldn't do this, but if the same child were to come out to their parents as straight, like mum, dad, I'm straight, there wouldn't be this kind of almost like a but contained in their response. It wouldn't be like, oh, right, you're straight, but we still love and approve, or sorry, we still accept and love you anyway. There just wouldn't be the need to talk about it from this place of like, oh, that is so, and yet we still accept and love you. And that blew my mind, seeing like, wow, even in something that seems positive and is kind of like as subtle as we still accept and love you, there is a real, there's something energetically very different from that idea of it's amazing, it's perfect, I approve fully. And again, this isn't really about us being in approval of other people. This is coming back to the difference between self-acceptance and self-approval. So what we typically do in, most people who haven't been in this kind of work, we will be likely, when we're kind of like noticing our experience, noticing our desires, noticing our feelings, usually coming from a kind of critical parent voice to ourselves. And often this is a voice we've learned from our parents. And it will be kind of like, that's no good. I don't like that about myself. I need to change that. And then we start to move into this acceptance. Well, okay, I am doing that, or I do feel like that, but I still accept and love myself. Versus this, like, God damn, I'm amazing. Like, wow, look at what I've created here. Like, I could not approve of that more. So can you hear there is a real difference between that. Like, clearly we're not wanting to be in the critical zone. So even if you're moving into acceptance, like, yeah, that's a beautiful move in the right direction. But I believe there is real power from making that kind of shift into being willing to be in full approval. Okay, I think that was everything I wanted to say today on that juicy topic. As ever, any questions, any kind of like buts that have come up for you, let me know. Really happy to explore more on this. What else do I want to share with you? Well, I guess firstly, if you aren't already a member of our Facebook group that I've mentioned a couple of times now, get yourself in there. And that is facebook.com/group/primal happiness. And it's becoming a really beautiful group, actually. I must admit, it was a bit of our kind of neglected child up until a couple of months ago. It's been running a few years. And we kind of went through phases of being quite active, and then other phases we weren't. And then for the last couple of months, I think not least because we have the lovely Rebecca now on the team helping us, but I just feel very much more called to be present in that group. And it's starting to become this like really lovely, engaged, active group of people who ultimately are all choosing into this kind of path of rewilding and actualization. So specifically, as I mentioned, every month I offer a kind of selection of topics that I can talk about on the next show like this, and you get the opportunity to vote them. So that's one reason to join. But there's again, who wouldn't want to be with like-minded, amazing people like that? So also, if you're listening to this live or even on the replay and you haven't listened to our podcast before, it's a weekly audio show, either me talking like this or amazing guests. And we have got some incredible guests lined up over the next couple of months. Again, thanks to our lovely Rebecca. She's been reaching out and inviting some just amazing people on the show. So go listen to that. And that's at primalhappiness.co/podcast. If you want to find out ways to work with Jonathan and I, as I said, Wake the Wild Heart, which starts tomorrow, is actually sold out. So I'm afraid you missed a boat on that one. Coming up next, we've got something that has yet to be named, but it's going to be for the change makers, artists, entrepreneurs, people who ultimately are feeling this call to put their soul work into the world. And it's a program to support them in understanding who they are, uncovering that gift that they are, and then being able to embody and express it into the world. So again, we haven't even got a name for that yet. We don't quite yet know the format. The only thing I do have a sense of, I think this will become probably our kind of deepest and longest running program, as in we typically, when we do group programs, like Wake and Wild Feminine, I think usually lasts for about 3 months. I think this is going to be longer, maybe 6 months, potentially even a year. So if you resonate with the kind of person I just described, we haven't yet got a way to register for that, let alone enroll for it, but do drop me a line at lian@primalhappiness.co if that feels like it could be for you. As I said earlier, it always surprises me that everything we do sells out, but it does tend to. So if you know this is for you, make sure you're in a position to jump in once we do start to open for enrollment. I think that's going to be coming in November, possibly. Aside from that, I don't think we have at the moment, we might have, sorry, I was about to say, I don't think we've got any spaces for Wake and Wild Sovereign, which is our kind of deepest one-to-one program. I don't think we will have until the end of October for a woman. If you're a man listening and you are feeling that, go check out our Go Deeper page and get in touch. And we may be able to see if we can fit you in sooner than that. And that's at primalhappiness.co/go deeper. The reason I've said men stroke women is just because of the way that we work with men and women. And we have, I think we may have an available space for a man, but we don't have for a woman at the moment. That's the only reason I've said that. I love women. It's nothing to do with not wanting to work with you. Okay, I think that was everything I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you to bits. And always have a lovely weekend, because it's usually a Friday. It's a Wednesday, but still have a lovely rest of your week and a lovely weekend when you get there. Mwah. Bye-bye. So that is all for this month. I'd love to know what you took from this show. Come join us in the Primal Happiness Facebook group, and you can share anything that's coming up for you there. The link for that is facebook.com/group/primal happiness. And as I said, I'd also love for you to take part in voting for the next topic. Also, just any feedback, questions, anything like that, go post them in the group. And of course, if you'd like to join me live for the making of the next show, you'd be very welcome. If you just go ahead and like our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/primal happiness. And then you'll see the show airing live on the first Friday of every month. I'm not totally sure what time it's going to be. It's been moving around, but if you like our page, an event gets created, and so you'll have the time there. If you'd like to get the notes and everything we spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes, and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 295. And if you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, and oh my goodness, I think I mentioned in the show just now, we have got some absolutely amazing shows coming up. We really have. Head on over to Apple Podcast, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice, and hit that subscribe button. That way, as if by magic, you'll get each episode delivered straight to your device as soon as it comes out. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.